Hey guys, Deathletter Magic here, and Mark Rosewater's at it again with his odds and ends segment where he, quote, reaches into the mailbag and answers the most commonly asked user questions that he feels like answering from Ask Kissers on social media and his vlog. So it's virtually guaranteed that any serious actual question actually affecting real things will not be answered, although I have peeked at the first question. So Alice, aka Misplayed on Twitter, asks, is the story situation with this set the new norm? Which I'm sure was the most polite version of where the hell is the story? In fact, it kind of isn't that question, but there's a small book written in reply, so I'm just going to burn through it. And I have not read this yet. I am very curious what they're going to say about what the hell is going on with the missing story. So he starts with, I got this question quite a bit. No, people ask where the hell the story is, not is this the new norm? They want to know where this one specifically is. That's the question you got quite a bit. Anyway, so I wanted to call in somebody from our franchise team with firsthand knowledge of our long-range story plans. Okay, well, I guess not franchise in the traditional sense. For those of you who don't know, we reorganized a bit in late 2018, and part of the reorganization was the creation of the franchise team, which leads our story expressions and how they get to you. Well, I hope they do more than that, because that would just be called the story or the lore team, not the franchise team. I guess they mean like intellectual properties, storylines, artwork, characters, the leasing out of that to third parties for video games and stories. That's my guess. Otherwise, they literally do nothing that has to do with the word franchising anyway. Jeremy Jarvis is our franchise creative director, which makes him a great one to answer this question once and for all. Yeah, what the hell happened, Jeremy? What you're seeing is Magic's franchise team testing and learning. Okay, cut the crap, Jeremy. What we're seeing is a story that was supposed to be there and it's not. That's what we're seeing right now. You're not testing anything, and clearly nobody at Wizards is ever learning anything. Oh, we're testing not getting the story done at the right time. We're testing that. It's an experiment. Starting with Dominaria Fiction, we increased our investment and ambition in how we want to deliver great stories, to our fans. What if we were able to build a talent pool of authors that mirrored our talent pool of illustrators? Yeah, and what if you stop hiring them based on their gender and orientation? I mean, just imagine how big the pool would be if they considered anybody who can actually do their job instead of just being racist and sexist like they are with their recent hiring decisions. What new delivery channels could we use to expand the reach of our fiction? I love how, 2008 Jeremy is retroactively asking me that when I already know the answer is try to paywall it behind an ebook with, by the way, zero quality standards. Since Dominaria, you've seen us expand our author pool. Okay, how many authors do you think they had in the past? 20, 30, 40? So if anything, it's shrunk. So they're entering into new licensed partnerships for comics and novels. Yeah, the Chandra comic, which already failed. Got the 2 books that failed miserably. I think at least 1 or 2 of the games failed. I mean, that MOBA is never coming out, let's be honest. Then you got the atrocious failure of an MMO that just isn't one, it's an action game. Good job, guys, great licensing choices. Oh, and then Netflix, which we'll have to see how big of a disaster that is. Word on the street is there might be a leak from that, by the way. Like footage leak. And a word on my street is, well, you'll see in a future video. So comically, he tries to set up an excuse here, I would assume, by saying, we want to vary both the number of stories released and the length of those stories. Yeah, you went really short with Theros. I mean, this is like on the back of a cereal box for Theros O's or something. Like, it was pretty short. I personally wanted to see a stage play for War of the Spark instead of a book, and then for Theros Beyond Death, an interpretive dance. We want to best understand the tone that works for our audience, as well as the specific content that resonates most successfully in any given narrative expression. Short form versus comics versus long form, for example. Not paywalled and not different from what it was before, which is free individually released chapters on the internet. People liked that, so do that. I mean, that said, yeah, retrospective, duh. Hindsight is 2020, but yeah, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and people love the story and how it worked for year after year. Not everybody has the time or willingness to read a giant-ass book that they had to pay money for, just saying. To do that, we have to create opportunities to test and learn. With Wildered Quest, we released our first new era EPUB through Penguin Random House. I mean, they're making it sound awfully different from the War of the Spark books, but okay, sure. It was more successful than anticipated and was well received. I feel like you're skipping one there, Jeremy. Oh, pardon me, 2. You're skipping 2. The blowback from Forsaken illuminated... Wait, which one was that? I thought that was the, oh no, that was Children of the Nameless. Which was, by the way, like free, but also not linked to a product. Okay, I assume that was one of the 2 shitty novels and he's only mentioning one for some reason. So anyway, it illuminated that we need a better validation strategy, not only for issues of representation. Oh yeah, listen to the SJWs whining about Chandra because their own narrative totally doesn't say, oh, people's orientation can change over time. That's totally not an SJW talking point anyway. But for narrative content in general, yeah, how about the quality of it? Don't hire a screenwriter. You ever notice that the screenwriters for movies, when they make a novelization of the movie, they hire a novelist to do it? There's a reason for that. So are you ready, guys? Because this appears to be the actual answer. So after the blowback from Forsaken, and yet Wildered Quest was amazing, quote, we made the hard call to delay Theros Beyond Death fiction until we could create a new vetting process. So that sounds logical and all, and the timing seems right until you actually think about it. When was Wildered Quest started and when was it finished? Because, I mean, I doubt it was finished like 2 weeks before its release in the release of Eldraine, which would have been like 3 months before now. But when did they finally know that the War of the Spark books were crap? And if you think about, okay, when would that be, and when would they have started and approved and then finalized and not pulled the plug on the Wildered Quest book? The timeline's starting to get a little fuzzy here. So, I mean, it's possible that the Wildered Quest was written at the exact same time and finished at the same time as the War of the Spark books, pretty much. That's possible. And remember, the first book sucked, and then we waited 3 months-ish, or 2 months, I don't know, something like that, and then the second War of the Spark book still came out anyway. So they weren't pulling the plug on anything at that point, but they pulled the plug on this after already releasing the Eldraine book, and then that was good. So, I mean, it's not impossible what he's saying is true, and they made the decision then. I mean, especially with how slow they react to everything, but it just seems suspicious. Now, note, he said delay the Theros Beyond Death fiction until they can create a new vetting process, so we might still see it, but, I mean, are people really focusing on this set? I'll say more than 2.5 months from now. Maybe 2 months from now. Probably not. Now, if they were working on that process the latest they possibly could while still pulling the plug on this, while not pulling the plug on Wildered Quest while it was being written at the time that I think it would be written, so all those qualifiers, I suspect that doesn't leave enough time for a reasonable author to write a reasonably good quality narrative. Now, that said, you give me a weekend, I'll get it done. Like, you know, and I've written like fanfics and stuff before. I mostly write short form nonfiction, but it's not like I'm new to fiction. You know, I've written stuff just for fun and not released it anywhere because it's probably not good enough to, you know, be up to internet standards. But yeah, I mean, you give me a week, I'll write you a whole damn 12 chapter, whatever. Like, it ain't that hard when you know what you're doing. So hopefully he starts giving some details there. Let's see. That unfortunately means that we would miss our intended release window. So, okay. So he is saying it was a scheduling timeline thing. Whatever. We did our best to leverage our preview plans and marketing support to deliver the broad strokes of the story so people weren't left completely in the lurch. Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, yeah, it was still 2 pages, whatever. But we know you are disappointed and we are too. Well, not everyone. Not everybody's that into the story. Some people just wanted like 2 pages of what's going on and then they can get on with their lives. We're doing everything we can to ensure this will be a one-time cost for a smoother future. Now, he did say delay, but it sounds like canceled is more accurate. In fact, the next paragraph is, with Ikoria, we will return to an EPUB strategy. So I think that means electronically published as in you're paying for it, money, so great. And we will also find the correct time and channel to release the Theros Beyond Death fiction. Oh, okay. Maybe it will be part of an anthology or direct to Audible as a graphic novel. Okay, that's kind of telling. Then they really have not had anybody start working on it, or they requested like what was done so far and said this is crap and canceled it. I love how I'm speculating when I already have a pretty good source on what actually happened, so stay tuned to the end of this video. It's going to get real spicy. So Magic fandom deserves a publishing program as robust and enjoyable as the TCGs. I mean, not lately. You go play up against Esper Control 5 times in a row in Arena and tell me it's an enjoyable TCG. Yeah, actually, I think you're right. I think that the 2 War of the Spark books were as enjoyable as the TCG is currently. I hope Oko brought as much joy to your life as the War of the Spark books did. Anyway, and Magic's franchise team is committed to delivering exactly that. In the meantime, don't be dismayed when you see us try new things. No, you should be scared when Wizards tries anything new. Don't be shy in telling us when something doesn't work. Imagine a big smiley face emoji when I say that historically this hasn't been an issue. Yeah, people love the story. That is true. This is one of the few misses. But more importantly, make sure you tell us what you love. That's what we want to deliver. See, that's why I tell people when they run an awesome event in Arena like Artisan, like, don't just go on the forums to bitch about stuff you don't like and then just don't say anything about the stuff you do like. You got to get on there and be like, this was awesome, do it again. And the same goes for fixing the paper quality. I made at least like 2 videos where they're like, yeah, finally, cool. Or when they ban something and actually fix standard, you got to be like, yes, thanks for doing this. Like, don't just whine about stuff and then when it's fixed, just sit back and be like, well, it's fixed. You may have noticed my channel doesn't do that. When they do something right, I make a video about it just as equally as when they do something wrong. Whatever they do, I make a video about it. So if people are like, your channel's too negative, no, Wizard screws up too much. I'm just reporting on what's going on. So that's the fluffy corporate speak of what went on according to Jeremy. Let's get a different statement from somebody who I haven't vetted, but, take it for what it is. Let's just say that. I don't really know how to frame this. Let's just say this is an inside source. So blah, blah, blah. Somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who works at the creative team at Wizards. And I'm just going to read this verbatim. So this is all this person's statement. He says that Theros Beyond Death has been in major development hell for years. Remember, they wanted to come back to Theros earlier. I think Mark even said that. So some of the stuff in here is true it's suspiciously true. Let's put it that way. Oh, and by the way, there were side products that were in development hell for 5+ years. Battle Bond. They said that. That thing was completed like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 4. I don't remember. They're like, it was done. We just had to release it. Or they had to finish designing it. It was 90% done. They said something like that. Anyway, they were planning on following up Theros Block a lot sooner, but the departure of Tom Lapile, or I have no idea, completely screwed up the entire process since he was mostly responsible for Theros Block's development and a not insignificant amount of lore. He wasn't given lead developer credit for Theros, and he wasn't credited at all for Journey into Nyx. I guess that's why I was going to say I've never heard of him. The whole process massively soured him with the company, and he left a year later, deleted his blog, MTG Twitter account, and now spends most of his day being angry at Trump and collecting unemployment checks. Let's see, if you quit, you don't get unemployment, though. You have to get fired. Sam Stoddard attempted to grab the reins at R&D for Theros Beyond Death, but the project killed him. He quit last year. Let's see, that's news to me. Theros Beyond Death will be his last set. Upper management has been at odds with Hasbro for a long time, with Hasbro trying to coerce Wizards of the Coast to churn out as many products in a year as possible. Now, that's been heavily suspected. People are like, that has to be what they're doing. Lower level employees get blamed for any missed deadlines. Okay, we know from Glassdoor.com that there is zero accountability with the managers and project leaders whose fault all of this is. So yes, to reiterate, this person claims lower level employees get blamed for any missed deadlines and any and all failures to meet Hasbro's demands. Theros Beyond Death has kind of been caught in the crossfire, and a lot of corners had to be cut for its release. There were plans drafted as early as 2016 to make it larger, like a 300+ card set, and include revisions of all the gods and many planeswalkers. Yes, including Chandra. So, yeah, if everybody's asking, where's the Gatewatch? They just kind of did something, and then where did they go? Well, some corners were cut. So the Titans were supposed to be a 10-card color cycle, but were reduced to 2 cards. See, that seemed odd to me. The idea of gods printed in the uncommon slot was tossed around, because that works so well with planeswalkers in War of the Spark, but replaced with the current demigods. Elspeth's escape from the underworld was to set up the larger story of gods versus titans, but this was thrown out in favor of trying to make Ashiok more relevant. I mean, okay, all right. People like Ashiok. By the way, internally, almost nobody likes Ashiok. Which is, I'm sure, going to be considered transphobic. Even though, like, literally as trans is intransitive, like changing. No, she's just androgynous. And I guess I'm going with she for this video. That's a female chin. I don't care if they like hired a like 6'8", 400-pound guy for the voice actor on Arena, because that's clearly what they did. I mean, Ashiok's coming up there sounding more manly than Cinder Shadow. He got that booming Canadian voice. Oh my gosh, they should have made Ashiok's voice actor coastal Canadian. Oh, hey there, guys. How you doing? Hey, you guys, watch me exile this. Take off, you hosers. I would have lost my shit if they would have done that. Oh my gosh, and every time she gets hit, frig off, Randy. Or, oh, that's greasy. Anyway, the Greg Weisman debacle has put a black mark on the entire company's relations with authors and, to some extent, creative itself, the new division. There were memos sent out to over a dozen potential authors last year to scout out who would be willing to be commissioned to write Theros Beyond Death. None of them accepted Wizards of the Coast's offer. Now remember, authors are like really looking for work. They're like artists. You know, you look at just like my high school graduating class, there was like 15, 20 people who could draw as well as any professional artist. They could be an illustrator. They could be like a character designer. They could do whatever they want. It's a lot of people have artistic skills, and I'd say that goes 10x for authors. You just have to be good at fiction, occasionally read it, know how it works, and have good English skills. There is literally no reason with me with zero special training whatsoever except for taking advanced English in 11th grade should have been one of the top writers for the company that I was writing for before YouTube. And yet I did just by like reading books occasionally and hanging out on the internet. So there are a lot of authors and not a lot of work for them. So for them to take like sci-fi authors and be like, okay, who wants to do this? And to have none of them accept Wizards of the giant ass sub-company of Hasbro Coast, for none of them to take the job offer, it's almost like they have a reputation for, one, underpaying every contractor and staff member ever, which they do, have an alleged reputation that they do that. And two, I mean, depending upon when Greg Weisman's book came out, damn, word might have gotten around that you don't touch this company, because if you write one thing wrong, oh, they are some extra sensitive snowflakes, those SJW libtards in the Magic community. Well, then there's the other 99% who just didn't want a book that's written like crap. So more specifically, no one looks forward to having to write 700 pages of material in 6 months only to get thrown under the bus by the company that hired them over Wizards of the Coast's executive meddling. Now see, that is a reference to something not many people know about, although I made a video on it. Greg Weisman claims that his original version of the book had Chandra bi as hell, and something with Nissa's relationship, and it was in the book, and then somebody from, I think he said Hasbro, came in and told him to change it. And then Wizards did literally nothing to defend him when everybody accused him of like anti-bi discrimination. I don't know if they've invented a word for that yet, actually. You know, SJWs invent stuff all the time. I'm going to make up the word. Biscrimination. Yeah, the deadlines suck, the community and the management is toxic, meddling assholes, and then the next sentence is, from what I hear, the pay isn't that great either, which I can personally confirm is a long-standing rumor with Wizards of the Coast. I mean, they're going after top-level sci-fi actors that are like top-paid, writing huge books, making, you know, lots of money, and going to conventions and crap, and they're like, oh, we're only paying this much, but think how prestigious it'll be to write for Wizards of the Coast. And you can put that on your resume. And they're like, I've already succeeded. I'm already a top author. Shut up. Yeah, you want me to write something this long, this good, while you sit there and micromanage it, and then I'm getting paid 1/10 the amount and I have to rush it. No, I think I'd rather sit home and do literally nothing or take any other project anywhere. So between that and the last minute changes to the set, that's why the Theros Beyond Death story is missing. So remember, it was going to be Gods versus Titans and all this, but then they couldn't finalize the actual set, the cards, the characters, what was going on. So then they needed somebody to rush it out, and nobody took the job. So they anticipated there being a story, and then it just kind of slowly collapsed into there is no story. So to reiterate, this person wrote, that's why the Theros Beyond Death story is missing, because there isn't one. Anything related to the story that has come out was probably written in haste by a panicked intern in between getting screamed at by HR, threatening to fire them if they missed the deadline. And the next sentence is, I am not joking. So yes, this is not speculative at this point. If anything comes out soon, it's probably going to be an article written by someone in-house, which, From what I've seen at the English skills of anybody there, that's probably not a good idea. Seriously, Wizards, I'll write it. I mean, if you think really, really short deadlines, really, really long form content, and unbelievably low pay is something new to me, then you haven't read my resume. I'll do it. Hit me up. $1,000. I'll do it. I'll write the whole story in 2 weeks. I'll take off work and just get that shit done. I guarantee you I can get it done in 2 weeks. And it'll be the best damn story you ever seen in your life. The couple times a long time ago that I wrote like a fan fiction thing for a high school assignment and then also published it on the internet to see what people thought, it actually was pretty well received. No, I'm not going to link to it. Oh my God. I think the website doesn't even exist anymore. And the last thing I need is you guys cringing at that shit. I mean, maybe it was that good, or maybe just people were politer on the internet back then. But no, y'all don't need to see all my video game fanfics. No. Mm-mm. By the way, the teacher had to read like a 40-page, like size 12 single-space font story because they didn't put an upper limit on the project, and I was like way into it. I think they just saw the grammar and the flow and just like skipped the whole middle. That's the impression I got when they graded it. I got it back and I was like, well, you too, because you made us read some 800-page boring-ass bullshit book about Norwegian farmers in North Dakota doing literally nothing, and that's the point of the book, is how mundane and boring life was. You could have just told me it was mundane and boring, not force me to experience it as well. By the end of that book, spoiler alert, the dad dies, freezes to death in a blizzard, and I was like, yes, finally, this family. I hope without their dad, they all starve to death and die. This boring ass book. So now the tables have turned. You got to read 40 pages of bullshit that I wrote. What's up now? I mean, y'all probably, because it's some kind of famous book, I don't remember the name of it, probably had to read this, a small portion of you. I remember they made candy out of maple syrup by trying to freeze it, and I'll remember because I tried that and it didn't work. The neighbors came over once, and I don't remember what happened. The neighbors came over once, and it was a really big event, and the dad died. That's what I remember from about 800 or 900 pages about Norwegian farmers doing nothing. Now, I can tell you every detail about like Virtual War or A Tale of Time City, because those books were actually good. But yeah, I've read 200, 300, 400 sci-fi books. Give me the job, Wizards. I'll write that shit. I already know damn well what y'all about to say. We'll just write it anyway and release it, and then we'll all just pretend it's the official Theros Beyond Death shit. If I'm not getting $1,000, I ain't taking 2 weeks of my time. And they're gonna like Nintendo me the second I release it and be like, you're using our names, characters, likenesses, screw you, we're suing you. So no, I'm not gonna do it. Yes, I could just change all the names and call Planeswalking teleporting and pull a Half-Life 3 author leak where it's a super non-leak, definitely leak. But I don't think I need to poke the bear any more than I already do. As I continue to read this leak statement from allegedly an employee. Anyway, for what I assume is legal reasons, the person does technically say, oh, this whole statement is fake, it's a joke, it's satire, blah, 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 to cover their ass. I don't believe it. Either they have a working knowledge of very specific details at Wizards of the Coast that very few people know about, like they follow them to the extent that I follow them, if not more, or they accidentally just got a bunch of things right in there. I don't know, that just seems like some cover your ass legalese that I'd put at the end of a leak as well. I'm just saying. But according to this person, their family member who works at Creative at Wizards of the Coast and knows that it's named that, and knows all of the employees' names and the history and the order and some other things that I pointed out in this. Yeah, but it's all fake. It's all not real. I just have a hard time believing that. So like I said at the intro, I mean, anybody can write anything and make it look accurate, so this entire thing might be BS, but only one little detail in this seemed to contradict things that I know. Well, actually 2 details, and the second one's kind of big, so I don't know. So maybe this entire thing is not true, not really what went on. Maybe it's partially true, maybe it's a good guess, or maybe it's absolute dead spot on accurate. I mean, you as a viewer got to decide. I thought it was worth reading because I read through it and I'm like, this is way too accurate and way too good of an explanation. And it fits way too well with everything that Wizard said. The big difference is their version of events was, okay, we cannot release another bad story. Let's just pull the plug on this one, not even request an author in the first place. Let's like do it later, or just be more careful about vetting people or, approving the final version or whatever. And we'll just delay it to somewhere in the distant future or never, and we'll just work on Ikoria. Either that or they literally were just rushing everything. It's a nightmare working there. Hasbro's putting pressure on them. It's one disaster after another. And they were just like, it didn't get done. We couldn't find a way to do it. Oh, well. One or both or neither of those is true. So that is, I guess, as much of an answer as we are going to get. At least we do have the details of, like, it's just not coming out. It might in the future in some other form. But Ikoria should have some kind of e-published book that you probably got to pay for. But at least, like, the first ebook was freaking like $15-16 or whatever. And then the Eldraine one was like $3.99. So hopefully they keep that going. I mean, as much as I don't want to go off platform to some bullshit that they just mentioned, like Audible, which is a terrible company, a terrible service. But, like, I don't want to go to Amazon. I've made maybe 3 Amazon purchases in the last 10 years. I hate them as a company. I hate their website. eBay is superior in every way. They just happen to not get into ebooks. So, if you publish it there, I'm not going to go there. You know what I mean? You put it on your own damn website that I visit every day to check the news. I'm going to read it there. So let's coordinate with a publisher. Let's not, because I don't want to go off platform. They seem to have this confusion with Arena too. For the calendar of events, I don't want to go off platform. I have the game open right now. Put the calendar in the damn game where I already am. I'm not going to follow you on Instagram. I'm not going to follow you on Twitter. I'm not going off platform. Nobody is going off platform. Ever. Speaking of that, because I know you're on YouTube right now and people don't like going off platform, especially to shitty companies, Patreon's been on Santa's naughty list for a while now. I kept mine open because I don't think Subscribestar is reliable enough. Maybe at this point they are. Last year they weren't. But instead of heading there, guess what? They just turned on memberships on YouTube. So I'll be configuring those as soon as I can get all the artwork and emojis done, which I am way too focused on. But I mean, if y'all going to pay like, $2, $3, $4, $5 a month or whatever to support my channel on YouTube, they're going to be the dankest emojis you've ever seen in your life. So that's like the majority of the work I have to do is design the emojis that you can use in chat for live streams. Hopefully you can appreciate that. But yeah, for those of you who aren't going off platform and you use YouTube, period, but still want to support me, I will have memberships turned on hopefully by the end of the month. Wait, what date? Holy shit, it's the 27th. Okay, probably not. But very, very, very soon. In the meantime, we got t-shirts and also I have 2 more sponsors coming up. One you're familiar with, one you're probably not. So that'll be exciting because they are wonderful companies. In fact, one of them is free. So I'm looking forward to that because my revenue's down $1,000 this month. F*** YouTube. And thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next video.